And here we are. Good afternoon, listeners. This is Giles Edwards from 366 Weird Movies, and seated across from me are 4 family members. 2 sisters and daughters, husband and wife, mother and father, and this crew makes movies together. So we'll start with my left. If you want to introduce yourself, please.
Hi, it's Lulu Adams. I'm very happy to be here. Thank you. Hey, my name is Zelda Adams, and yeah, thanks so much for having us.
I'm Tobey Poser, the big poser of the bunch, and the Adam Adams.
And I'm John Adams.
The John Adams of the bunch. Well,
The John Adams.
Thank you all for sitting down with me. Your film, your latest film, Where the Devil Roams, had its international world premiere last night to a pretty much packed big auditorium of film enthusiasts. The film concerns a early 30s era family, a mother, father, daughter trio traveling around the Catskills, causing some degree of mayhem, but they're also their main job is a performance in a traveling carnival circus. So some old world milieu, a bit of dark magic, and any number of macabre horror things awaiting the adventurous viewer. There is quite a lot of history feel in that film, so I was wondering if you might take some time to talk about whatever like American mythological elements, black magic elements, cross-section with that historical time period, and what made you pursue the different avenues of the darkness that you explored in Where the Devil Roams?
Great question. Well, we love to explore mythology in all of our films. In this case, often, as per our other films, The Deeper You Dig and Hellbender, we were coming up with something just very original. In this case, we wanted to do a little spin on a biblical story of a fallen angel, Abaddon, and the shiny god under which he slips, and falling in love and becoming a human in the form of a pauper, just like our family. I mean, the Depression is a really ripe area to explore people who are just getting by and trying to survive, and that was a fun playing field for this family.
Yeah, I would also like to add, Lulu and I have been homeschooled in our school career, taught by mostly Toby teaches us like grammar and fancy stuff like that. But one of the things John was like, oh, I can teach that, is PE and religion, because he studied religion in school. And so I remember there were a lot of drives where, we would just be talking about God and stuff and all like these religious aspects. And so I think that there's always been this interest between Lulu and me in, like what religion, lies out there. And I think that there's a lot of biblical references, as Toby said in here, that we wanted to explore, like the Holy Trinity, the holy number of 7, angel, Eve, all this stuff. And so I think this is our way of exploring our little religion classes from homeschooling time.
Yeah, it's important to say the religion classes consisted of, here's Gnosticism. Because you've heard about all the other religions in school, so let me just teach you a little bit about Gnosticism, which is going to tell you that everything you learned is the opposite. And so it's fun, because religion explores all of us down here on Earth dealing with the gray area between good and evil, and how do you deal with it. And that's what this movie's about. And one of the best places to set this family is in Depression era America, because I grew up in an old beat up house in the Catskills where it was filled with pictures of that time. And you look at those pictures and they have a dark romance to them. They have stories. They'll just be like 3 people sitting in a car in front of our house. Yeah. But you look at them and you're like, something fucked up happened. Like, I can just tell. And I don't know whether it's me or whether it's just that black and white photography, that black and white feel, is there is a dark vein running through that stuff, and I feel like audience members feel that too. So by setting this in that dark era, we all are already in that place of like dark mystery. So I think it just helps the horror viewer, especially the educated horror viewer, which, you know, we love talking to, that they're already feeling vampire, they're already feeling Nosferatu, they're already feeling these things that they love, just by setting this family in that spot.
And they do a lot of dark shit.
Well,
But yeah.
Yeah, even
That
like
is
the antique shops that will even frequent, and you'll find art from these old broken down homes. Like we have a picture of this girl or doll, I'm still not even sure, but a lot of it you can't tell if someone's deceased in this picture or if they're alive and kind of frozen in time. There are sometimes we're not sure if someone was dead when they had this painting made of them. And there's so much of that in all these old casual homes.
Oh, yeah.
Not even the regular Scary Joe in the corner of the street.
Yes, there was historically a closeness to death, that each family would be, you know, the mortality rates were higher. Certainly in the Depression era, circumstances were more dire for very many people, but it was still an era in which death was less processed. You know, this photograph aside, but yes, I understand that phenomenon. It was like, someone's passed away, and you can have any number of photographs you might take of them now deceased inside the home that they spent, you know, virtually all their lives living in. So it's a closeness to death that is much less typical 100 years later as we are now. So I can understand not knowing whether it's doll or person or dead person falls in very nicely with what I'm familiar with from that time, and the evolution of, you know, the whole mortician industry and all that, and the surrounding importance. It became more ceremonial, I want to say, and less visceral. And obviously in your film there's a visceral edge coupled with the photographic edge. And if you want to maybe remark on, maybe expanding on what your sister said there, your character, Zelda, who's Eve, always has a camera. And what inspired or gave you that wonderful little idea to have a permanent witness to the action?
That's a really good question. I think that there's a lot of layers to it. I'll answer my way. I think that we all have different reasons for it, but it's kind of building off of what Lulu said. Is there's so much weird, honestly, Depression era stuff like laying around our house, and one of those things is actually an old camera. We were like, we'd be so stupid if we didn't use this camera. So that's when we go to Tobey and say, hey, you know, what's the significance of using a camera like this? And I know she has her own answer, but I think we really, along with singing, wanted like to have a way for Eve to deal with her trauma and also have like her own little shtick. Each of these characters has their shtick. And so Eve needed to, you know, she's a person that's creating her own world and expressing herself. You know, Maggie finds beauty in creating death, and I think Eve finds beauty in capturing that death. And she's grown up watching her movie watching her mother kill a bunch of people. So it's only, I think, natural that she might, you know, find it almost like nurturing and artistic, and it's something that she can control. Maybe that she doesn't, you know, wanting to find control.
I love that. Yeah. She makes art of her mother's compulsions, and whether it's a coping mechanism or whether she is just a dark angel kind of doing the devil's will, or whether it's one of my favorite parts of the film. It's her capturing and the joy she seems to have, you know, just so.
But I think that she is, you know, what's they called, the puppeteer of everything going on in this story, whether it's her parents or these dead people. She is deciding their fate and how they're going to be remembered through these photographs. She is the master.
She is the master.
No,
all the way until the end. And it's fun that she's the angelic master until the end. And then she's the dark master. And she's doing the dark master for the dark master's bidding. And it's really fun.
Perfect. Now, so the characters in question, we have Eve. She is the mute but singing daughter character. We have Maggie, the practical one of the group for the most part. And then we have Seven, the father played by John Adams here. I couldn't say I was sure about the meaning behind that name. You guys hinted at it with the allusion to the specialness of that, but I also know that another tradition that hasn't survived too long is the naming of children by the number sequence. So I went through that movie once I had established who you were, John. I was like, oh, he's probably the seventh kid in that family, and at that point they're like nuts to names. Was the impression I was under because of my familiarity with that other habit there. But he is not a preacher, but a doctor, a man of healing with some traumatic backstory, as well all of you guys had in that movie. I'm curious if we might go into what's up with Seven, and how did he end up, say, with the likes of Maggie, and so raise a daughter who is named after the middle part of his name.
Yeah, Seven.
Very cool. Come on.
Yeah, whoa. We're stealing that? Yeah. Seven, first of all, the number. We love dealing, like as Zelda mentioned before, the numerology and the little pieces of religion, and one is seven is the perfect number. Well, Seven can't see evil. He can't do it anymore, which is like God. God doesn't want to see evil anymore. He doesn't want to deal with that. He needs everybody forgiven before they can arrive before his viewpoint. It's like, but the devil is happy with everything under perfection. And so the idea that Seven always has to be blindfolded because of actually an ethical choice that's a hard one but a correct one that he made during the war. Do you do something absolutely heinous and horrific to save 3 people, but sacrifice 1? Or do you just sacrifice all 4 and do the beautiful thing? Well, Seven chooses what in a sense the devil would choose, and becomes an imperfect God. And so he's a doctor who was saving people. He was doing God's work. But when he steps over that boundary, he's a blinded God now. And so it's kind of like fun. And so what happens with that is once your ethics and your morals, you get challenged to the place where you realize, no, I'm in the world. I'm in the brutal world. You realize, and we take it to the extreme, you realize that you can fall in love with this serial killing woman because there are so many attributes of love in there. But they are balanced with some serious dark shit. But knowing that you've done dark shit, who could love you? You've been excommunicated from the army, you've come home an anti-hero, you've done evil shit, and yet this woman who used to have a crush on you, who you didn't even look at, she just cleaned your blood, still loves you. And you create this kid that deals with that combined sickness. And it's just really fun because they talk about religion. My first religion class was the history of the Old Testament. And my teacher, Dr. Eisenbeis, always repeated this mantra. He's like, true love is always being able to forgive. Always. And I remember thinking, like, that's not true love, that's just stupid. But as I make it through life and survive, I realize, no, that is what true love is.
Yes, that's Well, of course you know the answer. You made the movie. Again, with my takeaway with Seven's Blindfold was the PTSD angle.
Oh yeah.
Which obviously a more practical tie into that. It's like, as you say, war veteran has seen a lot of terrible things, and so can see no more. The one time we see him witness, we see the effects of it before Maggie comes in and sets things straight for after a little card game kerfuffle.
Yeah.
But I guess I now want to know, because we have a guy who sees no evil, we have someone who says no evil, which leaves Maggie, which I guess makes Maggie the hears no evil, maybe.
Yeah, I think that works. I think Maggie isn't the sharpest tool in the box, but she knows how to use it.
Nice one,
And
Toby.
so I think I love the scene where she asks questions like, tell me about that book you're reading. And he's like, you don't want to know. She's like, I do. So I think she does like to hear. I'm not even sure she knows how to read, really.
No.
You know, she barely does. She knows that a sign says room 35 cents, but she's probably not educated. She's definitely not educated. And so I think, and she loves the sound of her daughter's voice. It's one of the ways that her daughter, so
And
you're onto something there.
Ukulele.
Yes. So I'm stealing that too.
And Toby wrote that ukulele song, that really sweet, charming song.
That's great. I guess a plot thematic question. We have our opening band of Merry Marauders. They've got their not so successful gig with whatever circus thing is going on, but otherwise they're traveling around in their Chevrolet through the Catskills, and a number of deaths occur. I'm giving nothing away to speak of with that. And at the start, you have a number of merited deaths, and there's a point where that changes. I was wondering if you might elaborate on why your character shifted from kind of vigilante but agents of a larger justice before slipping downward away from the more meritorious run-ins with strangers.
Maggie makes a mistake, and it's out of love, because she mistakes the Norwegian for German, because again she doesn't know any better, and because of her, in a way, she thinks she's defending her husband's honor, and it's something that just happens impulsively, and she pays for it. But I think there's also room within Maggie that. She's not a perfect, these characters do bad things. There's a malignant thread through them, and for which they will have to pay. And but that's where things really go badly. Yeah. And we wanted to show that something kind of sets that off.
And righteousness always ends with failure in the real world.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of righteousness. And it's amazing when you see righteousness, because there's really no such thing as it. And she is kind of righteous in her judgmental killings. But then her righteousness leads her to kill a bad German. But like all righteousness, it's a bad idea.
But it's also a product of her being defensive of her daughter, who is communicating in her very special way of singing a song, and then he interrupts her, and she's like, "No, you don't do that to Eve."
You're right. That sets it
Do
off.
not
That's a
come
good
with
point.
Eve.
That's a great point.
So I think she's being a very nice, sweet mama.
And I love that, because Eve too. You can see Eve's dark side. She is all for it. She's Eve.
Oh, yes, the relish with which she increasingly holds the camera, and a wonderful foreshadowing moment where you're on the porch, like, okay, something's going to happen. Oh, something's definitely going to happen.
I wonder what's going to happen. Nope, I don't wonder anymore.
Yeah. To get back to, you mentioned threading things together, the sort of plot hook, that heart in a box. It is the dark magical toy of Mr. Tips. What is what's the history of that particular bit of bad juju there?
Well, we were trying to hone the mythology behind what is driving these characters, and mythology is something that we just love creating in all of our films. And so playing with the devil, we just thought, well, what is the magic? We knew there had to be some kind of physical magic that made Mr. Tips be able to heal after cutting all his digits off, and then for the family for Eve to sew her family, her mothers particularly, together, but that it doesn't work. So what is missing there? And so we came up with the story about the fallen angel, and who falls in love with a human, and as God, drags him back to earth, he wants to hold on, and only her heart is left, but the devil's claw is lodged inside from trying to hold on to something he loved that's mortal, but of course must die. And so that's what it comes from. Just we made a story about a magic, that the devil's magic exists within this heart.
So that's pure Adams there.
Oh yeah.
Nice. That's wonderful.
And the devil has forever.
Oh yeah.
That's what's great about the devil is the devil plays with humans, but forever. And he's involved with them. And the devil has time to go get his lover. And if he keeps it all under shady places, God doesn't pay attention to shady places.
Yeah.
Sleepy-eyed God.
Yep.
To get back to your, shall we say, production history, for those of you who may not be familiar with the family Adams here, they have been working together for a while, certainly with a notable breakthrough back in 2019 with The Deeper You Dig, which I had the pleasure of watching, and that is somewhere in our archives. I talk about that, and it came to mind even beyond the facts, like, oh, it's all the same people, and I know they made this movie, and I know this is what they do, but what I will, a tone of blue I will ever associate with you in the form of the lipstick that appears at the final bit. Is that I guess what I'm looking for is if there's a specific reason behind that blue, and reason why you harkened back to that very dominant color and location that is permeates your first bigger movie.
It's funny, blue just looks so damn good. It really does. And also it's one of our favorite presets, like a Lumetri preset, right, John?
Yeah.
But also I think that we found that blue is almost everywhere in our life, and I think we like to pay homage to it. Like we spend a lot of time under a blue sky waiting for a cloud to come because we only shoot in flat light. So but since we only shoot in flat light, when we put this blue tint on it, it creates this cold undertone that we just love so much. But, John is the one that color corrects our film, so what do you think?
Yeah, but you put that lipstick on, and I would imagine the answer is that Zelda never wears lipstick. It's probably just the same ass lipstick from The Deeper You Dig, and it was like, I gotta put on some lipstick. Where's some lipstick? Oh, look, it's blue. It's nice.
It is the same lipstick.
Exactly. Well, that's probably the real answer. But I loved your intellectual answer.
Oh, I thought you were talking about like the coloring tones.
No, he's talking about your blue lipstick,
the blue
because
lipstick.
when you're driving with Toby in the beginning of The Deeper You Dig, talking about like that's cunty and I like it,
Yeah.
you're wearing that blue lipstick. And then you wear that blue lipstick again, and it's like so great because it's true. It's like, in a sense, there's a lot of things that are actors in our movies. The houses that we use them repeatedly. The hallways, the stairways, the lipstick. There's a lot of things that are in our life that are actors. They're in our little Carney group, and I would say that the lipstick is one of them.
I also have my earliest memory actually of Zelda with that lipstick is, I think, a huge start of that roller coaster ride when Zelda shot off in exploring art on her own also, because you were doing a lot of photography and figuring out modeling, and not just modeling yourself but others. You'd put it on me, you'd put it on yourself, you'd put it on people's faces. It was not just for the lips. Zelda was shooting off with that lipstick.
Yeah.
And taking photos in creepy New York in the rain. Lulu, lie on the road when it's wet.
Yeah.
Put on this lipstick, put on your face too. And I think that was just a huge symbol of, honestly, the start of you just shooting off. behind the camera,
Oh, thank
not
you.
just in front. Yeah, absolutely.
It's my favorite little marker, and you know what? I think we should use it in our next film. We're going.
I was just going to say,
Now we're on purpose.
it's
Thank
coming
you.
up. We know yes, it's going to be in the next film, Blue Lipstick. Somebody write that down.
Well, that's fantastic. Oh, I do want to thank you. I'm going to sneak in one more question because that's I'm going to take that liberty there. I did ask this 4 years ago. We all know you're from the Catskills. Who doesn't know you're from the Catskills? But I do like to close just for official purposes. Restaurant recommendations from your hometown.
Ooh, they're changing fast. So, go girls.
The classic, Ramondo's. Ramondo's Pizza in Roscoe. It's so fucking good. My cousin has a scar from eating the pizza fresh and hot, dripping on her leg. It's amazing. Same owners. They keep it within the town. All the locals work there.
Yeah.
You go watch
Z's?
soccer game. Great.
I'm an ice cream girl. Go to Nifty's and get a nice little scoop.
I'll go for the new kind of bougie one from the people who moved up during the pandemic and brought really good food with them. The walk-in.
All right. I'm going to go with the people that I love, the Roscoe Diner. Yes.
Wonderful. Well, thank you all very much. As always, a pleasure to talk to you now. Lulu and, of course, Zelda, Toby, and John. Very much obliged, both for sitting with me and for the wonderful movie that I'll be diving into writing the review for right after this.
Thank
So
you.
thank you.
So much.
Thank you.
I'm proud to say I feel almost fraternal here. They are absolutely longtime now members of the Fantasia family. World here, The Deeper You Dig in 2019, which in that year was pretty much all of our favorite films of that year. It was such a breath of fresh air, so personal, so genuinely creepy, so aesthetically completely original. And then, of course, the world premiere of Hellbender 2 years ago, which is truly is almost a graduation to a next level of bigger filmmaking for the family. But still, it's absolutely as personal, completely individualistic as anything they've done before. Truly, nobody tells stories or shoots visuals or creates atmosphere or tone or music the way this group of artists do. Without further ado, it's such a pleasure to bring back to the Fantasia stage Tobey Poser, John Adams, Zelda Adams, and Lulu Zelda and I were taking pictures. She wanted to take pictures, so she was Bonnie and Clyde. So she dressed up as Bonnie, we took pictures. She dressed up as Clyde, we took pictures. We posted them on the internet where we made them black and white. And she was a great Bonnie and Clyde. And somebody said, you should make a movie in that era. And Mitch Davis said, do it. So we hope you enjoy it. Truly some of the most original independent American short film that's really coming from a similar, spiritually from a similar place, I feel, and that it's occult and it's poetic and it's moving and really, really original and distinctive. So the film that we're going to see is a 13-minute film that made every house is haunted. We're going to have Bruce McGuire, who unfortunately is not here with us, but we're going to go right into Where the Devil Roams, and your lives will be forever changed. The street will be dripping with embryonic fluid as the word comes through, and you will be the first audience in the world to see it. So thank you for coming. Don't shut up. And then that, seen this film but you. So hold it in your hearts. It's your mission now to spread the gospel of Where the Devil Roams far and wide on the interwebs and recruit new believers, so we'll be seeing much more often. I do want to say, as you may have noticed, the projection exorcism did not take. There were some, the blue line is not the way the film was designed to be seen. Yeah, I want to stress it out in case, I don't want anyone to review it and say there was this really interesting aesthetic choice of a blue line in the center. My interpretation of a blue line, you know what I mean? But also the sound design, the whole system in the booth is insane right now. 2 techs came in during screening, trying to figure out what's going on. The projectionist, not her fault in any way. The system has just gone mental. So basically it was reproducing a 5.1 mix. That's a glorious 5.1 mix, and not so glorious 2.0. At least it was stereo, but this is an intricately mixed and designed film, as if you've seen Hellbender or Deep Dig, as you know. The family are all musicians, and sound is incredibly important to their vision. They didn't ask me to say this, I just want you all to understand. This did not look or sound like the film should have, and we're all very disappointed. At the same time, I'm glad that you all enjoyed it, and it was so exciting to see it come to life with an audience. I've always seen it as a work in progress screener before. And the Addams family are true originals in every sense, and genuine poets of the genre. Please welcome back to the stage, the Addams family.
Thank you guys so much for rocking with us. We felt a lot of love tonight, and we can't thank you all enough. Thank you.
Start with the basics for those of you not already know. Can you describe a bit about your working methodology, your creative process, and your writing process?
Yeah, absolutely. So the way that it normally works is one of us normally comes up with a pretty fucked up idea and then brings it to the rest of everyone else. I think this one was born on the drive to either soccer practice or to dinner. We often talk about like nightmares and dreams that we have, and one of the nightmares I frequently have is about clowns, especially after I watched season 4 of American Horror Story. And I started thinking like, hey, what if clowns are actually pretty cool? Or like they were the protagonists of the story. So I brought that to the fam, and they're like, yeah, they would be pretty cool. I don't know if like we want to do a clown movie, but we could do like a carny movie. And we all just started like throwing ideas at each other, and this story was produced. And John starts writing some wicked music that kind of structures our film, and we honestly like get cracking as soon as possible, or else it just never gets done.
What happened fast then? Really fast.
Yeah, I mean, as we were on the festival tour for Hellbender, we just started hitting every thrift store we could and picking
dresses and clothes. And by the time we got back, our car was packed to the hills, and we just had lots of costumes we could mix and match, and we just started to roll when we got home.
And a beautiful thing about coming to all these festivals like Fantasia is talking to you guys, and also, having critical views and things like that, but mostly watching other people's films. And one of the things we noticed on our last festival run was that there was a ton of body horror. We were watching all this great body horror, lots of people getting hacked up, chopped up, and split in pieces, and it was like, let's do that. And so it was fun, and we have our great effects guy, Trey Lindsay.
Really adopted them, so. I gotta tell you, it's, I feel very privileged to work with these guys. Like you, I'm a big fan of their work, and what's really cool in my position is I'm the first fan. I'm the one that's there when they're thinking of the idea, they're kind of bouncing things like, is this possible, is this good? And it's so cool to be at the beginning of it. And then I was also been sitting on my reactions maybe since Christmas when we finished it, and I've just been so dying to be out in the world and talk about it, because that closing shot means so many things. I can't wait to have it out there to be talked about, because there's essays to be written, and it's just awesome. But anyway, that's me.
Once you have your cast and you build your sets, and that's important, these are all hand-built sets in your backyard. Yeah. I love it. So once production's underway, and you're each at different times, directing, operating the camera, and passing off responsibilities depending on who's in shot, do you want to talk to about that to the crowd? Because it's such an unusual way to work, and you do it so brilliantly.
Hey, this is a great time to bring up Sam and Harold, who starred, and Jack and Eric, because these are actors that come work with us and have zero script. And they show up and we're like, well, here's the idea of what we want to accomplish in this scene. And we all hash it out. And these guys have given us like a lot of leeway and a lot of confidence and a lot of love to kind of do the process the way we love to do it. Right, Tobe? I mean, it's like, it's important that we kind of have that freedom so we can like paint with the camera and paint with what's organically happening with whoever's in front of it.
Yeah, we just love to cast people. Often we'll cast people who've never acted in their lives, but they just fit the role, and they bring so much more to it than we could by just putting some words on the page. So we put a lot of trust in them, and we had a lot of fun. And we also had Lulu, who has been away a lot because she's our wanderer. She was in school before anyone, and so we got to have her, and she helped build the set. She's the fearless one who will get up in a blizzard, with the Ronin and shoot when nobody else wants to shoot. And then we were like, Lulu, take these acts. You got the muscle. And it's good to have her back in the fold.
One of the things, Lulu, when we were building the sets, right? I mean, it was raining, it was snowing, it was hell on wheels out there, and it was really fun. And she had her boyfriend with her, and me and Alex and Lulu, we built all these sets together. And while we were building the sets, we watched a movie called Nightmare Alley. And in 10 minutes, I looked over at Toby and I was like, we're fucked. Because it looked so freaking great.
You're talking about the recent one?
Yes. The one was just that. And the sets were amazing. And everything was amazing. And she was like, that's what Toby said. She's like, don't worry, we're going backstage. We're doing the nasty part of the carnival. And that's one thing that really became fun about shooting this movie is we had built the front of stages and things like that, and all of our lousy carpentry looked so good in the back that that's where we filmed all of basically our lousy construction. And it was fun. It was dirty and nasty. And it was so fun to do.
It was really fun to build. Absolutely. There were some cool looking hands. You didn't have to do props for good looking hands sometimes.
But do you want to speak about the process of family of just trading off directorial duties during the process?
Yeah, totally. So basically, whoever's like in front of the camera, they are not the one operating it. Like, there's a lot of times where like
running the camera, setting it up. So yeah, it's a pretty easy way of working. We all go into a scene with what the way that we want the scene to go, our choreo notes. And when we're on set, sometimes it gets to the point where it's like, all right, we all have 3 different ideas and it's freezing out, so let's try to just get them all done. So sometimes we'll shoot a scene 3 different ways, and we always say the editing process just never lies. And also if we all want to try a different camera angle, sometimes I like to get down and weird and do a weird Dutch angle, and they let me do it. And sometimes we use it, sometimes we don't, but we all have an open say to do whatever we want.
Wow.
Toby is great at all the storytelling and knowing what points we need to hit. Let's be honest about that. And it's fun because she puts little circles in all of our movies. She completes the circles. It's things like the shoots. All these little touches that have huge meanings. Toby makes sure that it's not just random. That things have a beginning, a middle, and an end, even if they're tiny little pieces. And that's something that's just so great about Toby's mind. I love that she brings that part of it to our films.
Well, thanks, but let's be honest, sometimes if you just want to cut off heads, so there has to be something great, let's definitely cut off head. Let's just try to understand why. So that's what a good teamwork is.
And it works like that. It works like, I want to cut off a head. Can we cut off a head? Yeah, we can cut off a head. John, before we cut off the head, why are we cutting off the head? I don't know. Figure that out.
I love how the film opens up as kind of a dual homage to Wales Frankenstein and also to Freaks. Did you always know that you want to have a Johnny Eck-like figure as the starting point to your film?
No, that was kind of a beautiful happenstance where someone had written and said, hey, I'd love to be in your movies, or maybe you can kill me. And then when he realized we were doing a carnival setting, he said, oh, well, do you need a freak? And we were like, fuck no, we need an MC. So let's, and he was wonderful. He had a lot to memorize. He'd never been in front of a camera before, and he was just delightful and loved it and gave us his heart. I mean, it was a beautiful, and we'll work with him hopefully many times.
Yeah, we love building our team, work with the same people. And this kid's name is Justin. We wrote on Instagram because we got a lot of friends on Instagram. We love talking horror. And he saw some pictures and was like, oh my God, I would love to just do anything. And so we drove up to Boston and filmed in his kitchen first, and we kind of fucked it up, And we came home, we didn't have the greatest shit. And I called back up, I was like, I'm so sorry. How about if we come to Boston, pick you up, bring you to our woods where we know how to deal, and then we'll film it again. And it worked out perfectly because, one, he said yes, and number 2, he had time to, I sent him what I had edited, so we got a chance to look at it and go, okay, I see what's going on. Because there's a big difference between shooting in somebody's kitchen with the cat, getting in the way, and what the final product is. And when he saw the final product he got, he was just wonderful.
Cool. Now, one of the more audacious choices of the film, among many, is the idea to make it a period piece with very modern, powerful metal music through it. I love that there's more new Hellbender tracks for this film. Because you're just such great musicians. Do you want to talk a little bit about that choice?
We're a band. We're Hellbender. And we love making music together. And actually, this is another. Mitch had he didn't know it, but he had a lot of effect on this movie. And one of the things we were talking to him about when we said, yeah, we're going to do that period piece, and we're trying to think about the music. We're writing old-timey music, and he said, be careful with that, and because that can go either way. You can either look a little foolish because we're not real musicians, and we thought,
we're real musicians.
Well, we're real, we have fun,
yeah.
But we can't read music or do shit like that. But we do know what we like, and that kind of freed us up. We kind of were like, be careful. We were like, you know what? Let's just do what we like doing and what we've always done. And what's that? Oh, please, yes.
We had started because my dad and mom was in the band when I was a little kid called Banana Fish Zero, and the best band
video also. That helps your attention. And so I would go, and I wanted to obviously be like my dad, and I thought, I'll be the coolest kid ever, I'll be in a band with my dad, I'll be famous rock star. So we started a band called the Hot Roses Band. And from then on, we would do a couple shows. Someone allowed us to actually play.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
We had a crowd. And it was amazing because she didn't want to learn the lyrics or anything. She was like, I'll just sing when we get there. And I was like, all right. So I would play tunes, and this kid would just rattle off this most crazy shit. And we started to get a crowd. And it was so weird because we also didn't know what she was going to say. So it could be highly inappropriate. But it was wonderful. And then one day after the show, these people wanted to make a documentary on us, and they showed up, and they were filming, and Lulu got off and said, I don't want to do this anymore. And I was like, okay, yeah, well, you're sick, so whatever you say goes. And then Zelda was like, I do. So then me and Zelda had a band. And anyway, it got to the place where we all came back together, and now we're doing this band together again. And it's so fun. And it's really nice to have people enjoy what we enjoy. So it's super nice. I mean, really.
Yeah, and I think one of the reasons that we wanted to do like metal, like modern kind of metal, with this 1930s film is because we didn't want to try to be something that we're not. Like, we're not going to make 1930s film. That's just not our band, that's not us. So I think that we just tried to implement like our Hellbender music in the best way we could, because like anything with this film, we wanted to stay like as true to ourselves as possible. Like, keep it cast small, keep it dirty and fun and weird. And I think that we tried to do that, and we did. That last shot definitely weird. Yeah.
Fantastic. I will say the poetry of the lyrics intersects so beautifully with the general poetry of the dialogue, the screenplay. Which makes me curious because you mentioned this before about the improv and the freedom that a lot of your peripheral actors had. But yet, there's a lot of specificity to the style of writing of the leads of the three of you have. How much of this was scripted and how much of it was improv? Because my sense of it is that it was meticulously scripted.
We do have, I guess what we call, we'll usually have a template from which we jump off. Like for Mr. Tips and for the MC, there definitely was poetry. And Sam showed up, and we were still in the process of writing that poem when he had arrived. And he was really great at just kind of like, okay, I'm going to go and I'm going to just learn this overnight. I mean, that was, yeah, his stuff was a mixture of Psalms, Psalm 88, Job, something else in there, of the Bible, and then poetry, yeah, for the MC. So some of it was very much scripted, but there was a lot of leeway within there. Once they showed up. We really love to create our own mythology, and within that, there's always, in all of our films, there's like a passage in a book, let's say, in our previous films as well. And that stuff we definitely think about beforehand, and we love doing that.
All right. Let's open some questions in the audience. Yes.
That was an absolute delight, and it was great to see you all on big screen again, but I know I'm greedy. I imagine other people around here are greedy, and you were just talking about how you're always chatting over new ideas. What's up next?
Great delivery.
That was a great delivery. We got one word. You can say one word, right?
Fairy.
Oh. Bounce that in your skull.
feel like, you know, with your daughter's first boyfriend, cut his fucking head off.
Like, it truly was just so fun because we had this fake head and we're pouring like gallons of blood on it. We're like, is it bloody enough? No, like, cut harder, cut faster. And it was just a blast.
Every time I see Jack's mother, I'm like, I'm so sorry. When you see this, you are just gonna hate us.
I'm like, oh, my mom. And oh, man, we're sorry.
My favorite scene was the Gnostics. Sitting down by the river. I just love the way Tobey acted in it. I love the way Zelda acted in it. And for me, that's kind of like the real of the movie.
It's an amazing movie.
Yeah, with the There Is No project you did with the Liberty Day back in 2019, which was tremendous and looked like a million budget. You step out the game with the music and Hellbender. What would you say now you step out the game in this one, and what are the challenges that you faced with this one?
That's so good.
That's great. I think Trey should answer this one.
Yeah, I do too.
Personally, I think this one is the most ambitious in terms of scale compared to everything I've done before. And you know, as the effects guy, it was kind of it's nice to kind of grow with them as their films get bigger and more ambitious too. Because when I spent on DPU Day, which was the first one I did with them, it was like a couple of little ghostly effects here and there, and then in Hellbender it was like witchy stuff, so there's lots of particles and stuff. This was the first one where it was like production design, and we could have fun with the environments and do. They had to do map paintings to make the carnivals bigger than they were. It was so much fun to kind of like see that scope grow each time. We were even making. I mean, John is very honest. He wants everything to be very honest. So, like, I remember when I first mentioned the possibility of a green screen, he was like, "No, we're not doing any green screen." And then, like, the whole opening is a green screen, and like every extra that you see, every crowd you see watching the performances are all on green screen. We build our crowd. Like every time somebody was in a period costume, it was a quick stand over there. We'll get a shot. We're looking that way, looking this way, and then we could build little crowd scenes. By not having 30 people at the time, we just kind of assembled them later. And it's great. It's so cool to see like as they became more aware of what's possible with effects, the vision would get bigger. This was the biggest vision they've had so far. I mean, just doing a self-funded 1930s period piece with 80 speaking parts is like so ambitious. So anyway.
Once we made Hellbender, we were approached by kind of some like Hollywood kind of people to make something. And a lot of the time we were told that we should be, you know, you want to make a $10 million movie, then a $40 million movie, then a $100 million movie. That's so weird. Why? Who said we wanted that? But this one guy was talking to us, and he said, "What are you working on now?" And Toby's like, "Oh, we're working on a period piece." He's like, "Well, that's dead in the water, a period piece." And Toby said, "Eat shit." It was great. So I was like, I don't think we're going to be doing that $10 million movie, Toby. But, right, good. So I think what Trey's saying is like, we're starting to, we love playing small. We love one camera, we love tininess. We love the tininess of it. We love working with no lights. We love working with tininess because it's beautiful. And so to answer your question further, that we do have somebody like Trey, and we do want our production value in a sense to keep growing, but in an organic, real way, so that when people watch it, they're not like, "Oh yeah, there's what happened, a little sapping," you know.
I'll just add, we learn so much every film that we do. I mean, that's why we move so quickly, because by the time the film is done, we're like, "Shit, now we got to use everything we learned," and then it's just a beautiful. I don't even want to call it an evolution because I don't think there'll ever be an end to the learning. Each one poses a challenge, but we love those challenges and we just want to keep going. Hi. Okay.
Each film, the emotional core is so prevalent. It's as important, if not more important, than what we see on the screen between the three of you. Can you talk how it evolved for this film from each one up to this one?
Yeah, totally. One of the biggest lessons that we learned was in The Deeper You Dig. Love that film, but I think one of the great things about, going to festivals and stuff is you do get criticism and you learn like what you did wrong and what you can do better. And one of the things that people said is, hey, I wish I could have seen more of the relationship between the mother and daughter. We're like, you know what? You're right. Let's do that better in Hellbender. And I think that we did develop a great relationship in Hellbender. And in this one, we had more characters in the family, and that's twice as many relationships to build. And so I think it was super important to have intimate scenes between the mother and the daughter, those two together, me and the father. Yeah, that's my take on it. How about
all of our films are just little family albums, they're documentaries of where we are right now. The Deeper You Dig, our kids, was worried about them getting hit by cars, was worried about that part of parenting, so that's what that movie's about. It's about that. Hellbender is, Lulu had gone to college, so we had to have that difficult parental thing happen. Beautiful, but difficult. And then Zelda is turning into a woman, and so we made a movie about that. That's just what that is about. We just pour blood all over it. This movie is about Zelda looking at her parents, like, kind of getting older. And we're also watching my parents. Her parents are gone now, and we watch them deteriorate. And we're watching my parents do that. And so we wanted to make a movie about a child's view of watching their family fall to pieces. And that moral struggle about, do you keep it together? Like, do you keep this monster going, or do you let it die? Let it die the way it should die, or things like that. So basically it's just a movie about where we are right now,
Yeah, especially we thought Hellbender was going to be like one of our last, kind of films together for a while. And then we had like one more year. I was all online because of COVID. And it's like, should we try to sneak one more film in? Like, just like really hold on, like sew this little kooky film together with one last film, and that's it.
So, as you go off to college, do you imagine a future where you come back and you want to see you again?
Totally, yeah. And we are, and we will,
Yeah.
More fun than the Nightmare Alley. I think at Crypticon you said something about sometimes having limited resources, limited funds, not just a practicality of having to do it, but actually allowing more artfulness or genuineness. Can you comment on that with respect to this film?
Well, we just don't have that much money. So it is kind of, they say like creativity kind of comes out when we don't really have much. And kind of to answer your question, my favorite scene was because we could not get a driving shot of the car in motion. And I think the car was broken down. It's not our car even, it's his dad's car.
Don't tell him, by the way.
And so we couldn't get it, and we had these women coming to film us doing our thing, and we were, our car's dead. Can't jump it, and running out of time. And so we got a dead branch, no trees were hurt, and I sat on the side of the car bouncing it while they were in it. And then John and I took turns running the branch out of the car in the reflection to get a driving shot. So when you're driving, I turn the branch. Okay, get the other branch. Quick. You need to do more of an end bounce. Regular. Yeah.
Actually, I gotta throw this into it. It's not an effect shot, but it's one of my favorite shots in the movie. You guys were asking, like, how does it work directing when they're also shooting and they're acting with the camera stuff? There's one shot in the movie where all three of them are on camera, but there wasn't anybody else available to film. And they're hiking up the road to the rich guy's house to get the radio. And you see Toby and Z in the background, and John's in a close-up. And they didn't have any crew to get this whole shot, so John has the camera in his hand. He's filming like this while we're talking. And it's beautiful, but you tell any professional filmmaker, like, you can't get that shot, that's impossible. And it's one of the coolest shots, and it's just invisible, it's effortless, you don't notice that it's anything special. But that was part of having no money, no crew, and being able to just still get the vision
disadvantages are our advantages. We love our disadvantages. We couldn't afford lights, so we never used lights. We used available lights. Now that's our rule. Like, just use available light. Walk into the room or walk out. It's fun. It makes it fun. That's what we're learning about production, is when it's tiny, it's really fun.
So good to hear. Yes.
I see a bit of a Razorhead and Guy Madden, a Canadian filmmaker. What are your influences? Who do you?
I don't know if we went into it thinking but for me, I love German Expressionism. Like one of my favorite movies. I love Cabinet of Dr. Caligari. I mean, I love Murnau and Sunset, A Song of Two Humans. So there's something about like black and white, and I know as obviously the color was being drained throughout, and so for me I don't think we ever talked about it, but it just was something that was important to me. I think this was our most theatrical film, and I come from theater. I love black box theater, and so I love the claustrophobia of the darkness. So for me, that was an influence, just German Expressionism.
What do you guys watch?
What do we watch? Oh, we kind of watched everything. If someone has a suggestion, like if the kids are like, oh, let's watch it, I'm always trying to get them to watch things too that I like. We're pretty agnostic.
One of the things that really influenced the black and white shows, at least for me, was I watched Ben here, it's spelled with a Y, and I fucking couldn't believe how masterful it was. And then Trey and I talked about it. I was like, could you do something like turn it into something like that? He's like, yeah. And he did. And it was really interesting to watch, Sam and Harold act. Like, their acting changed because that black and whiteness brings a romance to us all and a whole lot of feelings. So it really helps with what we were trying to do, that it turned into that black and white jittery. Oh, it's really fun.
Nice. Any questions up there? It's harder to see. Yeah.
What did you shoot on? What was the format? Was it film?
Just on 5D, Canon 5D.
Canon 5D. Yeah. And how long was the production process?
How long was it?
About a year.
Yep.
Only a year?
Yeah.
You're shooting in bursts, right?
Yeah, we shot like all in winter because like we only have a certain amount of time and the snow is around. But one of the great things is that we edit while we shoot, so that if like we fuck up, we can be like, oh, let's go try again tomorrow. And that also like makes the time a lot shorter of shooting. We like it a lot that way.
Yes.
Well, from everything you said before, I said you really have a unique way to do things. Do you think that would be possible to like bring those views to the movie industry? And like, where's the limit in a way?
If you want to save a ton of money, yeah. It's fun doing this. It doesn't have to be a bummer. Do you know? And I love big movies. But I think this is fun. You can do it small. I think there's a lot of rules. The industry has created a lot of rules to make movies that aren't necessarily written in stone. If that makes sense.
Well, the unions.
No, but
What's the difference? The slides with the crew, but you need a first date, you communicate with your actors,
Right.
the crew is insane.
everything's expected. It's expected to have 3 people holding a camera. It's expected to have a 10-person lighting crew. It's expected to have, a certain amount of food. There's a lot of things that are expected that are just the way it's been done. Look, we're not trying to say we're trying to reinvent the wheel here, but for what we want to do, staying small and tight. It's an interesting question that you're asking. I think the industry looks at us and thinks, I don't know. What do you think? I mean, you're on all. What's your opinion on his question, which is a great question?
I guess I'm kind of an optimist. I feel like there's a lot of wonderful art there that gets seen that isn't expected to be seen. I think there's room for
Frankenstein that we know is black and white, and the whole thing, if you can't, I can't separate Frankenstein from black and white, you know, and Zelda actually demanded that it go to black and white, and the thing is, it looked, where we shot was so beautiful in this old hotel from the Catskills, and Trey and I were like, let's not turn it black and white, and we kind of showed it past to Z, and she's like, yeah, it's not black and white. And then when Trey really laid out that effect, it just had this wild romance to it. Like, it's a real kiss to the horror crowd, too, because I think they can appreciate that more than any other cinematic crowd, you know?
And the talkies were kind of taken over at that time. I mean, I think color actually started to be seen as early as like the early 30s, wasn't it? But for most of the films, we thought, well, these people are, it's sort of like they're stepping into what is replacing the carnival circuit. This is, for me, another reason the black and white was a fun choice.
We have time for one last question. Go for it.
When's the Hellbender tour?
Right?